Amazing. So anyone who's new here, welcome. I'm Mish. I help out with a group called Uncovering Spiritual Gifts. And on a bi-weekly basis, we've been having people come in to talk about their area of spirituality, their practice, whatever they're working through. And Julia is here today to talk about sound healing. So she's going to share her experience and, yeah, answer all the questions that you might have about sound healing for chronic pain and illness. So yeah, Julia, take it away.
Hi, everybody. I am so happy to be here today. This is actually the first time I've been invited onto a call like this to talk. So computers are a new format for me. Excuse me if there are some hiccups in the process, but I think we'll be just fine. I wanted to start today by talking about how I got into this practice, because I think it's important to know this wasn't like, hey, I think it's fun to play these instruments and I'm going to start selling this. This practice healed me. So I had a lifetime of chronic pain, a lifetime of fatigue, and a lifetime of depression, and frankly, emotional abuse in my life. And that came to a head in 2015 when I got Lyme disease. And from the time I developed Lyme, I was dealing with a lot of medical trauma, which in the end was making my body much, much worse. I didn't realize this at the time. But what I started to connect over a decade of time is that every time I went to the doctor, I flared. Every time I begged for help and didn't feel like I got what I needed, I was in more pain. I was more tired. I was less regulated. And by regulated, what I mean is with emotional regulation, if we are in a regulated space, we are calm and able to process our emotions. We're able to deal with them. If we're in an unregulated space, we are reactive. We are taking our emotions out internally on ourselves. We might be exceptionally tense. We're going to start to see physical symptoms. So, what I was noticing after doctors is I was dysregulated and I was getting sicker. And I hadn't really connected all of this until I found myself in a really bad, 8 years into illness. I was out of hope for healing. Western medicine had no answers. I kept getting, I wish I could help you. There were no other traditional modes for me to go to get better. I was one of the worst Lyme cases that a dozen doctors had ever seen. So if I was lucky, awake about 4 hours a day. And in those 4 hours, I was so tired, I was having trouble even lifting an arm. I was starting to react to my food to the point where I was down to a handful of foods that I could eat without getting sick. And I was in head to toe pain at an 8 or a 9 every single day. I was to the point where I didn't want to be touched because a light touch on my arm was too painful. I was to the point of sleeping in a variety of, somebody's doing work outside my house. If you guys can hear that, I'm sorry. I was to the point of sleeping in a variety of braces to keep my joints aligned because they were slipping out at night and I was waking up injured and I was miserable and without hope. So at this point, I was lucky enough to be in a position to be able to invest a little bit of money in myself. And I sent myself to a healing resort, not really knowing what I was looking for. I had not been on a spiritual path. I had never really even heard the word chakra at the time. But it felt like the right place to go. And when I was there, I experienced 5 days straight of sound healing. And the first thing I noticed in those sound healings, that first day, I sat down and I ate dinner when I got to the resort, and I started to react to the dinner. And I could see the hives coming out of my skin. I could feel my pulse increasing. I could tell I was developing a headache. The symptoms were, so I said to myself, I'm just going to go to this sound bath thing. And hopefully I'll be okay because I just have to lie there and I'll go up to my room after and I'll get some Benadryl. So I did. I walked out of there. The hives had disappeared. My heart rate had gone down. I could breathe. I didn't have a headache. All of the symptoms that were coming on as I walked through the door of that first sound healing I experienced disappeared in a 1 hour crystal singing bowl section. And I thought, well, this is interesting. Still didn't fully have my attention because it's once. What I noticed over the course of that week is those symptoms didn't just go away with the treatment, they stopped showing up. That by the end of that week of sound healing, I was eating foods that I hadn't been able to touch in a year, and I wasn't reacting to them. The hives that were constantly on my skin were starting to go away. I had about half as many itchy spots. I was now getting out of bed instead of 2 o'clock in the afternoon at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I was active all day long until 8 o'clock at night. And this got my attention. So at the time I wasn't driving. My husband at the time picked me up from the resort, was driving me home, and I ordered crystal singing bowls on my way home. Not because I was ever intending on offering this to anybody else, but because I knew these were helping me. And I wanted to start practicing with them daily to control my own symptoms and my own body. So this is where I'm coming from with this practice, that I truly believe sound saved my life. I truly believe sound gave me my life back. Before I found this practice, I did not have a future beyond struggling every single day to survive. I did not have a future outside of the doctor's office. I did not have a future that involved friends or family or career. I didn't have a future off of my couch and out of my bed. And there are a lot of people like me out there. But I think more importantly, for those of us who are well, we need to maintain our wellness, because anybody can get to the point I was at. So I want to talk to you about the years I've spent understanding what happened, how I healed like that from something as simple as meditation and music, how I found my way there, and why I was in such bad shape to begin with. Because we all know some people get the same condition, they get bit by a tick, they get Lyme, and they're better in a few weeks or a month. Why do some of us end up so deeply sick? Why can some of us not get better? Why do we have people walking around the world with conditions like fibromyalgia that we don't understand what's contributing to, why the body's reacting the way it is, why they're in pain? There's no medical reason. So this is what I have been exploring for the last few years of my life. And this is where sound has opened a doorway to me to understand. So the first thing I like to talk about, we can talk about sound healing in an Eastern, a yogic or a shamanic sense. We can also talk about sound healing from a Western lens. And I want to start with the Western lens because I think that's a lot easier for a lot of us to understand. And then we'll delve a little bit more into the energy of it. So from a medical standpoint, when you experience a sound bath, you're actually getting the vibrations from those instruments, not just in your ears, but throughout your entire body. They're capable of sinking into your organs. They're capable of getting into your bloodstream. They're capable of touching your bones and promoting healing in that way. So when we lie down in a sound bath, one of the first things that's happening is those strong vibrations from the instruments are vibrating our fascia and our soft tissue. And that alone is helping with the release to reduce pain. So that's a good start. The other thing that they're doing, we have a lymphatic system in our body. So we have two kind of liquid systems that run through our body. One is the circulatory system. The circulatory system works on a pump. That's our heart. So we know whether we're moving or not, that our blood is going to move. Our lymphatic system is not like that. This is the system in our body that is responsible for carrying out toxins. When toxins sit in our body, we get sick, we get pain, we get inflammation, we get cancer, we get cysts, we have problems. And our lymphatic system doesn't have a pump. The pump for our lymphatic system is us. When we move, when I do this, I'm pumping lymph through my arm. But what about somebody who's in the position I was in, where I was barely getting out of bed for 8 years? All of that was staying stagnant. my muscles weren't tensing, so my lymphatic system was not pumping, so my body could not detox. So I was starting to build up toxins in my system that were then leading to a deepening of things like headaches and fatigue and allergies, because the body was reacting to the foreign objects. And everybody, at least, especially in the United States, honestly, is coming into contact with toxins daily. So what are we talking about when we talk about toxins? We're talking about the additives in our water that are there to keep bacteria levels down. Bacteria is not good either, so I don't know what the answer is there beyond us filtering our water at home to make sure we don't take in those additives. We are talking about the air fresheners that we encounter all the time, the chemicals that we're breathing in from cleaners, and this has gotten worse since 2020. People are using these heavy-duty chemical cleaners to disinfect, and we do need to disinfect, but we're breathing that in, that's getting into our body, and that's affecting us. We're talking about additives in our food, and the United States is especially bad for this. The dyes, the sugars, the extra chemicals that are added to enhance flavor or just to make it cheaper to produce the food. Things like margarine have almost no food value at all. They're a chemical and oil conglomerate that we've been convinced is somehow better for us than butter. So we're all taking these things in one way or another in life. And I don't personally believe that living a completely ascetic life that prevents us from taking any toxins in is the answer, because then we can't live a life. But finding ways to move those toxins through our system, to flush them out of our body, and to keep ourselves healthy that way feels like a key to me. And that is one thing that sound is doing. Now, we also have studies that have shown that sound can actually crystallize. So if you take I'll actually type this into the chat, but if when you get off this call, you look up the pictures of Matsuru Emoto that I did not know how to bring into this chat, what you'll find is pictures of polluted water on a microscopic level that looks sludgy and disgusting, and pictures of the same water exposed to prayer, exposed to positive words, exposed to frequency, that have now crystallized into snowflake shapes. And I would call this pseudoscience to a degree. Yeah, it's kind of, if you look into how the study was done, I can't say this is science. But in looking at that, one thing that I found myself asking, do I need to fully detox my body? Or can I just crystallize my blood? Can I use these frequencies to create sacred geometry, crystals in my blood instead of sludge? And will I start to feel better? So I stopped looking at health as an all or nothing, take nothing in, get everything out, and started looking at it as, can I teach my body and other people's body how to live with the load that we're carrying without having to hurt ourselves, eliminating that load. So that is, key for me in sound healing, is that so few Americans think of detox outside of detoxing from substances. So when somebody comes to my sound healing, I know I'm helping them with that. And the only thing they need to do to assist it is to keep drinking water after the sound bath. So I feel that that's a little way that I can start to chip away without even asking anybody else to put effort into it. Now, the other piece of sound is it's really strongly, and this is what it's more recognized for, working on the mind. What do I mean by that? Well, for one thing, our vagus nerve, which is basically the heart of our central nervous system, so the heart of our emotional regulation, the heart of our ability to be happy, to be under control, to cope with the stress that's coming at us, it runs right through here. So down our neck into our belly. It's in the center of our chest. And I think that if you consider any experience you've had at a concert, where's the first place you hear your speaker? That music is hitting you in the center of your chest. It's the same thing in a sound bath. You are feeling this most strongly in your upper body and chest. It's hitting everywhere else, but the sensation is coming in right around the vagus nerve, and you're toning that vagus nerve. So what happens when we tone the vagus nerve? Suddenly we start to think rationally. Suddenly we start to handle stress calmly. Suddenly we start to see solutions. And when we're not so stressed out, our muscles aren't so tense. When our muscles let go, our bodies can start to heal. So in my own case, when my muscles started to let go, they stopped pulling my joints out in my sleep. I was so tense, I was pulling my joints out of alignment, and I was causing myself pain. So just by regulating the vagus nerve, just by continually toning that using sound, I got better. And other people can too. My reasoning here is that when we give our central nervous system the tools it needs to calm, we give our body the space to do what it was born to do, which is heal itself. And our body can heal itself from some really significant, severe health issues. We don't need the outside help. If we want to put the time, if we want to put the consciousness into changing our emotional state, our physical state will follow. The other big piece for the mind with sound, I think we've all heard over time how music lights up our brain. It's like the one thing that medical science has found lights up the human brain entirely. By lights up, what we're really talking about is it's stimulating the brain. It's allowing it to grow. It's allowing it to develop. When we lie down in a sound bath and we light up our whole brain, and then we bring in affirmation or conscious behavior after, we have positive experiences after, we can start to rewrite trauma. What I mean by that is our brains have formed pathways through life. And really since birth, you could have what's called a limbic pathway from the moment you were born with that infant trauma of, where the hell am I? Who is this doctor who just smacked me on the butt? Where's mommy? That immediate overwhelm can already have formed a limbic pathway that tells us that if you experience this stimulus, you react in that way. In my own case, growing up with parents who didn't know how to teach me emotional regulation and didn't know how to deal with my emotional sensitivity, I have a pathway that if I feel invalidated, I will react with extreme distress and anger. And it doesn't necessarily matter what the relationship with that person who made me feel that way is. This could be, in fact, the more I trust somebody, the more that reaction will happen. So there's no rational, I trust this person, they probably didn't mean to invalidate me. There is just a childhood response of a pathway formed in my brain that says, this person didn't listen to me. They don't love me. They don't want to be there for me. I'm not okay. This is something I've been working to rewrite with sound. And it is shifting. It's taking some time, but it's shifting. So when I talk about shifting a limbic pathway, it's that kind of knee-jerk, irrational reaction that might have fit at the time it happened, that might have been there to defend us at the time we needed it, but that has now lost its value. We have grown past it. We don't need to respond that way anymore. And it is now preventing us from living life happily. It's preventing us from having full relationships. It's preventing us from fully being ourselves. The biggest miracle of sound baths for me is there are a million ways to holistically cope with trauma. And every one of those modalities, I have tried almost all of them. They work, but they can be incredibly painful. They bring up the pain and you feel it, and you might continue to feel it for days after. And you need to be strong enough to move through and process the emotions that come up in those holistic treatments. Sound healing is a little different. The emotions might be coming up, but they're not coming up attached to a specific incident that you're concentrating on in that moment. They're not coming up in a way that feels like you can't handle them. They're generally resolved by the end of the session. I am speaking to you about self-compassion afterwards in terms of what pops up over the next few days and how to treat yourself. But I have yet to hear of anybody leaving a sound session and having a breakdown because so much came up that they couldn't cope with. So for me, when I first started working with my body, with my trauma, and even to this day, my trauma load was so big that going to too many of these other sessions, things like breath work and EFT, EMDR, they work. But if I did them 4 times a month, I broke myself and I stopped functioning. Sound, I could do every single day. It could chip away at these emotional spaces. It could chip away at these pathways. And I never found myself hiding in a trauma ball because I'd brought too much up for myself. I couldn't clear it and I wasn't okay. It is an awesome resource for anybody who is really hurting and hurting so much that they don't feel they can face talking about it, thinking about it specifically, that they don't feel that they can work through in that super conscious aware level what happened to them. This is a way to start to reduce that pain enough that we can then start to talk about it. And it doesn't feel like the emotion will kill us anymore. That we can then start to think about it. And those thoughts don't feel so overwhelming that we can't function with them. Now, why does this matter in terms of our physical health? Have we all heard the term mind-body connection? The stronger our mind-body connection, the more our mind is going to affect our physical well-being. Now, when I was at my sickest, I was really, really proud of my super strong mind-body connection. I was like, oh yes, if I say a rib is out, the chiropractor looks, the rib is out, I am on it. I know exactly what's happening. If I say my liver hurts, yep, sure enough, I go to the doctor, my liver hurts, I'm totally on it. What's the problem with that? I was concentrating on the problems. And so I was feeling the problems. By contrast, when that same rib goes out now, I don't feel it. I eventually get it put back by the chiropractor. I go every couple of weeks because I know my body will go out of alignment, but I'm not feeling injured every time something in my body moves anymore, which also gives it a chance to move back. I also am no longer, how do I put this? With the allergies I was dealing with, I worked deeply to understand. One of the things that was happening, and this comes from shamanic philosophy. So shamanic philosophy tells you to only eat when you're in a positive headspace, to only cook in a positive headspace, to be conscious when you're eating your meal. What I was coming into my food with instead was fear. Fear of how it was going to make me feel, fear of whether it was going to make me sick. And that fear was telling my immune system to act. So this is the mind-body, and I'd even say trauma-body connection. That we get into these patterns that start to trigger our body to behave a certain way because our body believes our mental perceptions. Our body believes us when we tell us it's in danger, and it responds like it's in danger. So if I am telling the body that the food I am eating is an enemy, it's going to then attack that food the same way it would attack a virus, the same way it would attack bacteria, and I'm going to have an immune response. I am not saying that we can meditate away every single allergy. Some of us are genetically born with conditions that cause us to react to food. That was not the case with me. I developed these over time. There was no genetic reason. This was my strong mind-body connection turning on me. And this is what I believe happens with pain conditions like fibromyalgia and CRPS, that those people suffering are so emotionally sensitive and have such a strong mind-body connection that the daily stress that they're living through is affecting them on a physical level and making their conditions worse. And that makes perfect sense to me in terms of, we talk about fibromyalgia as a degenerative condition. Well, could this be degenerating? Because once you have it, you are now dealing with the daily stress of people telling you you're weak, people telling you your pain isn't real, People asking you why you don't just try harder. People telling you to go try yoga. If you stretch, you will feel better. Now, I'm going to be clear, yoga helped me, but yoga helped me because of the concept I'm talking about now, because of the way I shifted my mental space and how that could help my body, not because I was going to class stretching. So this trauma that we start to live with when we start to develop these conditions, it's going to degenerate the conditions further. And Brittany, I'm really sorry to see that you can relate to this. If we can shift our mental state, if we can find a way to navigate through all of those societal perceptions, all of those daily life stresses in a way that washes over us and off of us instead of into us, our bodies will stop responding in such an extreme way. Our pain levels will go down. Our exhaustion will get better. This is the connection that I feel sound has for autoimmune conditions is, yes, you're coming, you feel good in the session, you get a break, you feel rested after the session, but in a bigger sense, it is also allowing you to move through the world in a healthier way, to be happier. And that happiness is going to allow your body to heal. Now, one of the energy systems we work with when we work with sound is the yogic chakra system. You know, sound, in my view, there are different views on this, comes from shamanic cultures and yogic cultures. And I honestly would even say yogic cultures are to some degree shamanic. We're all talking about the same kind of energy, the same kind of mind, body, spirit work to make our physical body healthier. When I first looked at the chakra system, what I saw was hope. You know, we as Americans, it's really easy to look at this system and say, yeah, we're just talking about emotional stuff. This is woo-woo. This has nothing to do with my health. But the reality is, if you look at the first chakra, this is the first chakra we form in the womb. This is responsible for us feeling safe. It's also responsible for our digestive system. It's responsible for our ability to go to the bathroom, for our ability to not go to the bathroom too much. It is controlling our colon. It is controlling our urinary system. It is responsible for things like tailbone pain. You move up to the second chakra and you're talking about, for women, uterus, for men, you know, your whole male reproductive system. So testes, reproductive issues. Well, I was dealing with some severe issues with my uterus. I don't have a uterus anymore. However, one of the things that put off that surgery for a long time was work around my second chakra, was work to handle this. Coincidentally, is also where we store a lot of trauma in our bodies. And the reason for this, we're talking about kind of the water system in our bodies and the system that is responsible for holding on and letting go in a very literal sense. When we're eliminating, we are holding on and we are letting go. Well, the emotional goes with that. If we're holding on to a lot of emotions, we are going to see these systems close off. We're going to see our colon tense up. We're going to see things stop working well. So I could go up the entire chakra, but I think that's a whole other hour-long talk. My point here is that when you look at the emotional pieces and the physical symptoms for each chakra, you get a roadmap to emotionally healing your body. So instead of looking at my uterine issue as I need to make this stop, what medicines can I take? What surgery can I have? I ended up looking at my system as maybe I need to heal my inner child. Maybe I need to work on childhood trauma. What emotions are feeding into these problems? And I started to get better dealing with those emotions. Now, again, with all of this, one of the main tools I had was sound-based meditation that every single time I started spinning out trying to work through this brought me back to a center. I debated whether to try to run an online sound bath for you guys. I had friends experiment with me with miking the instruments. What I decided this was going to be instead was a warning to you not to trust that online sound baths can do the same thing as in-person sound baths. I had somebody set up 15 microphones on my instruments, and we still could not get the sound and the vibration through the computer that you would get in person. So I chose instead to talk to you guys about consumer awareness, about how to use this practice to your biggest advantage. So what I will say to you is that if you attend an online sound bath, you will get a mental benefit. It will be a nice music-based meditation, but it will not come to the level of sound healing. If that person is infusing their instruments with Reiki, you will feel the Reiki energy that travels, but the vibration from the instruments doesn't travel across the world. So my request of you, if this is something that you find really interesting, is to please find a local sound bath and experience it in person, because I want you to have the full experience rather than getting half of the experience from me on the phone today and thinking that didn't do too much. I feel like that's going to turn you off of the idea of the practice instead of onto it. This being said, the other thing I wanted to bring up with consumer awareness, sound healing is at this point an unregulated business. That means that you have some people who have studied intensely, who have worked with energy for years, who deeply understand the practice and are providing sound baths on that deep energetic level with energetic intention and energetic planning behind it. And you have some people who are extremely talented musicians who don't understand what else is going into the sound bath, who have the instruments and choose to run the sessions. If you walk into a session and you feel like you did not get the benefit you expected, try somebody else. And that's the same with me. If you walk, yes, I have years of training. I have delved into the energy. And still, if you walk into one of my sessions and you don't feel like you got what you expected, try somebody else. Maybe I'm not the right person for you. And this is true with all energy healing. You know, I was a bit disillusioned when I started on this path because I realized how little our certifications really mean. If you attend a class, you get a certification. You don't necessarily have to have done anything great in that class. So the rest of it is left to the discretion of us and who we choose to trust and who we choose to go to. And this is a little, you know, with acupuncturists, you're not just getting a certification for showing up. However, you still in that realm have different levels of skill, and you need to find the right person for you. So I'm telling you this because I don't want people to give up because the first or the second time they went, it just wasn't that much. You might need a different practitioner. Look around. That being said, well, I can't run a sound bath. I can show you instruments. So one of my biggest, oh, Zoom is going to be a pain with this, huh?
You might just have to turn off your virtual background.
Yeah, I will if I need to. And then you guys will see my very messy kitchen. So this is a Himalayan singing bowl. I'm not even sure that the sound comes through Zoom. However, interesting thing about these, we don't actually know that these were originally energy tools. There is a big debate over whether the monks in Tibet were using these to store food or whether they were using them to meditate and heal. But in modern times, we have found that these are amazing healing tools. These make an incredible sound that relaxes the mind. But beyond that, in my own practice, they produce a deep vibration that when you play them directly on the body, can relax the body, can relieve pain. I've released hernia, you know, for multiple people now, pain from herniated discs, just playing these bowls on their backs. And this is something that we can do at home. You, with very little training, can pick up a Himalayan singing bowl, can get yourself a nice padded gong mallet, and can hit it on the place on your body that hurts. You don't even need to understand why it's working. You don't need to understand how that energy is moving. Yes, when people come to me in a private session, I might get a little bit more results faster because I have that understanding. But all you need to know, I hit it here, my body feels better, I should keep doing it. Just follow your intuitive feedback. So this is something you can do at home, even if you can't find a practitioner who's running these sessions. Another free, very simple way to run, to get your own sound healing at home is to go out in nature. And this is one of the most beautiful things I've realized with this practice. We live in a world that if we walk outside of our house, naturally heals us, guys. When we walk through those fall leaves and we hear that crunch, that's sound healing. When we sit by the ocean and we hear those waves, that's sound healing. When we sit in our backyard and we listen to the birds, that is sound healing. So if you are in a position where you can't, for one reason or another, get to a sound bath, please get to nature. Nature is going to do so much for you. Sound is just one aspect of it. So this is a way to get this healing at home. And when you do it consciously, when you go out into nature and you start to seek the sounds, they're going to affect you that more deeply. Now, the last practice that I recommend to people at home, and this was a hard one for me to get on top of because I was terrified of this. Guys, sing and dance. When we sing, we stimulate that vagus nerve. We directly relax our own central nervous system. And we don't have to do it well. I don't. I'm getting better. When we sing mantra, and these are available on YouTube and Spotify, look up mantra, see what you like and sing along to it. Look up what that means after and see why it was calling out to you. But when we sing mantra, we bring in sacred vowels on top of it. So this is work we can do for ourselves at home. Mary, you and I could talk. If you email me, I am close to Connecticut. And I have a friend in Connecticut. So if we practice these mantra sessions at home, we are doing this work for ourselves. We are empowering ourselves to get better. If we just choose to sing or hum at home, we are empowering ourselves to get better. And if we then choose to dance and move our body along with it, we are healing ourselves, guys. That dance is doing the same thing that any yoga practice would do. It is releasing muscles. It is releasing somatic pain. It is releasing that trauma stored in the tissue. There are whole spiritual practices around dancing. But this is something you can choose. I have this song I love. I'm going to turn it on every day. I'm going to sing along to it and I'm going to dance. And you're going to be surprised how much better you feel. So I tell you this because I love my practice. I love it when people come to my practice. But first and foremost, I want people to be empowered to help themselves so that they're only showing up because they want to come. And on that, I think I've even gone maybe 2 minutes over. Thank you, Mish.
Yeah, no, you are good. I actually have a question about instruments. How do you know, like, as you mentioned, certain vibrations with certain chakra centers, like when you see something on Amazon, for instance, how do you know, like, what tone to buy or like what vibration, like, how do you know how to do that?
So that gets tricky. I had a teacher who used to say all sounds are healing sounds.
Okay.
So my feeling about it is if you are trying to build a set of instruments, it gets a little harder because you want to make sure the sounds sound good together. If you want to purchase one singing bowl, what sounds good to you? Now, where crystal bowls are concerned or Himalayan bowls are concerned, if you're going to buy one of the bigger ones. You're going to get a lower tone. You're going to get a deeper vibration and a better resonance. If you're going to start to look into a set, then you might start to look into chakra sets and things like that, because those will come kind of pre-tuned. And when it comes to things like gongs and Himalayan bowls, if you want to then match the sounds on those, really good to find an in-person shop to take one of the instruments you already have and to see how it sounds with the others. That's how I do it. I'm still actually navigating that of how do I buy my instruments online and know they're going to sound good with what I already have.
Yeah, that's helpful. Yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions?
I have a question. Please. How about, excuse me, YouTube or like, I don't know, probably other platforms. They have those frequencies, 528 hertz or this or that. Do you find any value in those things? find myself playing them constantly because they just feel soothing.
I love them for my personal use. I
Yay,
use
I'm so glad.
those to fall asleep at night. That
Yeah,
was a really good. So what I take with a grain of salt is the claim of this is the love frequency. This is the healing frequency.
yeah.
I'm not saying they aren't stimulating those things. I'm just saying that we as humans really can't be sure. But they work and they're fantastic tools to calm and meditate.
I have to agree with you. I literally play them all day long, and I find that it just soothes me. I just feel that and I thought, like you said, that probably I wasn't getting the benefit of the vibration, right? Because it's, I don't know, but it's a different, because it's a frequency, it's not an actual vibration, so it's different. But I don't know, it feels good, and some of them get on my nerves, so I just change, right? And then
Yep.
another one feels good. Yeah.
Well, and truthfully, even on a day that you feel like you can handle it, try leaning into the ones that's driving you crazy. It might be one that you really need. It might
Really?
be triggering something that needs healing that could actually now use your discretion with that. If it's really driving you crazy and you're tensing up, stop. You're getting an amazing mental benefit from that. For the physical benefit, you're going to be primed if you show up to a sound bath to really feel the physical benefit because you've been listening to those.
That's
And
so
if you put
great.
it on like a good big speaker where you feel a vibration, you're going to get some of that physical benefit too. I
That's
also
awesome.
just typed a band name in here that if you're liking those tones, you might really like like they have these like meditative, very based largely in the tones, but I would almost call it English, mantra in English. So that's one that I use to meditate to a lot as well.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You mentioned putting a sound bowl on an area of pain and tapping it. I thought you had to go around the edge.
You do. So that is one way, but believe it or not every Himalayan bowl will sing if you go around the edge like that.
Yeah, I have one and it does.
Oh, that's good. Now
But
try, and that will work too. But if you just take a mallet and you tap like this,
yeah.
it's lower effort and a stronger vibration.
Oh,
So my feeling is that singing around the rim like that is an awesome meditative practice for me because I zone out while I'm doing it. When I want to really get into my muscle, tapping it gets the vibration stronger faster.
okay.
And Mish, if I pull up a Facebook listing for this kind of mallet, can
I
you
have one like
check it out?
that.
You have one like this?
Well, I have some tubular bells tuned to the chakras.
Oh, nice.
I
Oh,
think
those
I'm
are-
not really getting the most out of them. I use them in my own Reiki sessions. But I saw your thing and I thought, well, yeah, maybe I can find out a bit more about what I'm doing here. So confession time.
if you email me, we can definitely talk a little bit more deeply about how to get more out of the instruments for you.
Okay.
Yeah, because I can give you a little bit more one-on-one, not a sales pitch, just free information. One-on-one advice on that.
That'd be great. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I think Misha's put my email up in the chat, or looks like maybe
I have your Facebook, I have your Instagram, I have your website. I don't have your email.
okay, I'm putting that in now. So if you guys email here, I can give that more personalized advice into how to get what you need out of your instruments. And Mary, you're nearby. We can also talk about treatment. So
That's so great. Thank you so much. Everything that you said, you just described me, and I've been here crying in this group. You all are so wonderful. I thank you all for having me and for sharing all that you have.
oh, Mary, that it means so much to hear that it hit you that way. My hope is to reach people who are going through what I went through, and that can be a very hard thing.
I'd like to just say what an amazing presenter you are, and there weren't any ums and ahs and all that, because that drives me nuts when people and ah all the way through their presentation. And you were so clear and very, very good. Thank you.
Thank you for that. That was very affirming.
Mm.
I'm early in my presenting, at least online, and I wasn't sure if the ums and ahs were going to come out today.
Well, I didn't hear any. You'd be forgiven anyway. It was very clear and coherent. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here today. So Mish, how do you usually end these calls? Can we end with a moment of breath and meditation, perhaps?
We can. I think Akanksha also has one more question. She has her hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you on my screen.
Oh, you're good. Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask you a little bit about training. How did you go about picking your teachers and how did you find them? And what are your recommendations?
So my first sound healing class, I was admittedly very lucky because I didn't know what I was looking for. Are you in the United States now? Yeah, you said you are.
I'm in Canada.
Oh, you're in Canada. I
Close
don't
by.
know if there's a group called Meditate School of Mindfulness that travels and gives, they're quick. They're like 4-day intensives. That's a really nice place to start. And what I will say is wherever you go for training, make it in person because you want the chance to be up close and personal with those instruments. You know, the online trainings will talk to you, but you won't get to actually try the work. So try to find an in-person training and use your judgment around the way that person hits you when you interact with them, when you're looking into the training. That's a good start. Unfortunately, it is so random what each training is offering. And it's hard for me. And like I could tell somebody in Massachusetts, good places to go because I know the practitioners here. The other thing is to then work on training in the cultures around sound. So for me, I was looking at my instrument training. I was like, yeah, I know how to use these, but I don't know why. So that's when I started delving into shamanism. In my case, Kundalini yoga. I think pretty much any yogic study is going to give you some of this vibration. To understand the cultural view of vibration. And that's something I didn't have time to touch on, but it's also a good way to make sure that we're respecting the cultures that this work came from. But your work will deepen because you're understanding the concepts behind the work. You will start to feel a lot more connected to what you're doing and do it a lot more intentionally that way.
Thank you.
You're welcome and good luck.
Amazing. Yeah, we can do a brief meditation. And for anyone that also wants this recording of the event, or wants to see other events that run on uncovering spiritual gifts, I'm going to drop the YouTube link that this meeting will be on, as well as the Uncovering Spiritual Gifts Facebook group if you want to see other events like this. But yeah, Julia, let's finish it with a nice guided meditation, if you don't mind.
Okay, I think we can even get the drum to come through the speaker as well. So we'll do this with the drum. I'm going to have you all close your eyes, drop into your breath. And as you start to really just notice your own breathing pattern, sense into the bones that are touching the chair beneath you. Sense into the gravity that's holding you in space. Understand that at every moment of our life, whether we are conscious of it or not, we are being held by Mother Earth and the forces she creates. We are being supported. And in this place, we're now going to start to really consciously pay attention to our breath. We're going to work on a yogic long, deep breath. So I want you to start by breathing into your belly. Just feel the way your belly lifts when you breathe. Exhale. And on our next inhale, I want you to feel the difference. Just breathe into your chest the way we do day to day. Just so your chest lifts and nothing else does. Slow exhale. Now we see the difference between those two breaths, I think. How much more oxygen we can get. We're now going to combine them. So in this next breath, I want you to first lift your belly and then let your chest expand until you don't feel like there's Space left for more breath. Breathe into your belly. Feel your solar plexus left. Feel your chest and ribs expand. Pause at the top. Take in just one more sip of breath. And on this exhale, sigh it out. From this space, with our eyes closed, knowing that there is absolutely nobody to judge us in this practice, I'm going to stop drumming so that we can share a moment of humming and toning, so we can feel this in our body. What we're going to do is we're going to inhale twice, and on the third inhale, we're just going to let out a note. Doesn't matter what the note is, and we're going to sense into the vibration we feel in our chest when we produce that note. Let's take our first deep breath into our belly, into our solar plexus, and into our chest. And sigh out the exhale to open your throat a little. And one more into the belly, into the solar plexus, into the chest. Deep sigh. And in this breath, once our lungs are full, we're just going to make any sound that feels good. So breathe into the belly, breathe into the chest. Really fill your lungs to capacity. And now join me in making a little noise. That carry, but I hope that you all felt a little vibration in your chest. So in this meditative space, understanding that no matter what else is true, the earth is below us. The sky is above us. Gravity is holding us. We are where we need to be in this moment. We are safe. We are all actively healing every day of our lives that we make the decision to do so. And we are all going to be okay. One more breath to end. Into the belly, into the solar plexus, into the chest. A good sigh on the exhale. And you can slowly let your eyes open. See if you can find something that makes you feel good to look at as you open your eyes. This toning practice is another one of these things that is so powerful in person and a bit depleted online, but I thought it was worth a try. I hope that you guys have a chance to experience this in a group, and I hope that when that chance comes for you, that you dive in. Mish, thank you so much for making this call happen.
You're so welcome. It was an honor. That was a pleasure. And yeah, thank you for joining. This will definitely not be the last time you see Julia, but I have her if you want to get some in connection with her more directly. I added Facebook for her Instagram, her email in the chat. And once again, if you do decide to join the group, also on YouTube, you'll get to be able to join other events and also see Julia come back whenever whenever she's ready.
Oh,
So
I would love that. Yeah, we will definitely see each other again. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate you. I'm so glad I got to see you all. And if I don't see you tomorrow, I'll see you at some point this week, I'm sure.
Love and light, everybody.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much. Thank
Thank
you.
you. That was
Thank you.
wonderful.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad it was received well.
Yes, quite well.
Amazing. All
So
right.
good to see you, Julia. Bye.
It was
We'll
good
talk
to see you
soon.
too. Thank you for hopping on, Anna.
Of course, of course. Thanks, Mish.
You're welcome. See you later.
Okay.
All right,
Thank
let
you.
me